What do we do about the borders? Because tearing them down is not the answer. Well, the person who stands up and says, well, I see someone who's hurt by a border and I feel empathy for them, then immediately says, therefore I'm good, which isn't so bad, but therefore I'm also morally superior to you. And this is one of the true pathologies of the empathic collectivists, is that they presume that their reflexive empathy marks them out as morally superior. Just because I feel sorry for you doesn't mean I'm good, partly because I can feel so sorry for you that I'm actually harmful to you. And that's what happens in the case of overprotective parents, for example, because there's just as much error on the side of too much empathy as there is on the side of too little empathy. It isn't just compassion on the left. It's envy. It's like, okay, if I'm standing for the dispossessed, what makes me so sure that I'm not just standing against the successful? And maybe that's because I'm bitter and jealous and envious and resentful. And certainly it's highly probable. If you look at what happened in the leftist societies that tried to pursue utopia, and you don't read envy and resentment into that, you don't know the history. Because that's clearly the case. Why else did they become murderous? Well, this is the question. It's like, it's clearly the case that the Soviet Union, for example, was motivated by the desire for equality of outcome as a primary motivation. What happened? 25 million people were killed. Why? Why? Well, was it all compassion and love for the dispossessed? Or was it absolutely bitter resentment and hatred for anyone who had any shred of success whatsoever on any possible dimension of evaluation? That's the danger of compassion. That's exactly. Well, look, what happens if you think, oh, look at how, isn't it lovely that the mother grizzly bear takes care of her cubs? Yeah, it's lovely, man, till you get between her and her cubs. Then it's not so damn lovely. And that's the flip side of that affiliative agreeableness. It's like if you're on my side, if you're the infant who's sheltering under my wings, it's like I'm the absolute epitome of maternal love and care. But if I've identified you as a predator, you better look the hell out. And that's playing out in our political landscape at a very, very rapid rate. That's the female side of totalitarianism, as far as I can tell. The feminine side of totalitarianism. And it's not just that. It's not just that agreeableness motivates aggression, because it certainly does. It's also that the envious and the resentful can use compassion as a camouflage for their true intent, which is to tear down anyone who has more than them. There's the envy and resentment. This is the real pathological end of the faux compassion that motivates the radical left. It's like, yeah, you like the poor, do you? What makes you think you just don't hate the successful? And that's a question. It's like, because you're not perfect, man. There's hatred in you. And the probability that it's more powerful than love is pretty damn high.
So there's a reason I'm defending freedom of speech. And the reason for that is quite straightforward. The reason I'm defending freedom of speech is because that's how people with different opinions settle their opinions in a civil society. And if we lose that, we'll lose so much you can't imagine. Now here's what's happened with Bill C-16 and the surrounding legislation. Free speech is the mechanism by which we keep our society functioning. It's as a consequence of free speech and the ability to speak. People can put their finger on problems, articulate what those problems are, solve them, and come to a consensus. And we risk losing that. Now, you can say there should be reasonable restrictions on free speech, and that's the case. You shouldn't be allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater. And reasonable people can discuss and debate what those restrictions should be. But we can't debate the fact that putting restrictions on free speech is something dangerous beyond comprehension. And that's what we're faced with. Now, we've had laws passed in this country that regulate what people can say. What people can't say. And that's reasonable. But it seems to me that we're in danger of crossing a line. With Bill C-16 and its surrounding legislation, it's the first time I've seen in our legislative history where people are attempting to make us speak their language. And that's not something that I'm willing to do. Now, the left, the radical left activists are trying to turn this into an argument about sexual politics. And it's only nominally about sexual politics. It's about language that's designed to control our freedom of expression. Now, I've received many letters and many comments from friends of mine and colleagues who've been criticizing everything I say. No wonder. I don't speak perfectly, and my arguments aren't perfectly formulated. Neither are anyone else's. And we have to be able to say what we have to say badly, or we won't be able to think at all. And I know where that leads. I studied totalitarianism for 4 decades, and I know how it starts. It starts with the restriction of freedom of speech. Here's what I recommend. You all have consciences. You all have the ability to articulate.
Free speech calibrates. It's one of the attributes of political freedom, but it is not the highest good of all mankind. Huh? Why? Because it gives equal voice to fallacy. Does it not? Equal voice to fallacy. When it's time to operate and do brain surgery, I don't poll the people around for their opinion. You can't vote on truth, you see? You can't vote on truth. And the downside of our society, which if not corrected will be its destruction, much as Socrates predicted in 350 BC or 450. Please don't write me, it was 458, not 350. Around that time, he said, if you give every man an equal vote and equal power, he will destroy society. Yeah. The downside of this society occurred when action was legislated from the bench as symbolic speech. If action is symbolic speech, and in a free country you can say anything you want, there is no constraint at all on anything by anyone. I can do anything I want. So if I want to publicly burn the flag, is that speech? I don't even open my mouth. That's symbolic speech. Therefore, the Ku Klux Klan is okay. Therefore, sodomy is fine. Pedophilia is great. These are all symbolic speech, are they not? All action now is free of all restraints. There's no answerability, no responsibility. The complete and total destruction of morality and ethics, without which society soon becomes chaotic. Huh? You become the Chomsky ideal, atheistic chaos. Huh? The downside then is chaos. Huh? The people who believe in no government, what do you call them? Huh? Yeah? Whatever you call them, anarchists, yeah. The anarchists. So the atheistic anarchist ideal will come about through relativism, by which anything I do is I'm entitled to do, because it's my right, because it's symbolic speech. Die. That's just symbolic speech, folks, with a little sword. Therefore, with no right or wrong, then, war is just as okay as peace. Criminality is just as okay as law-abiding. There's no point to truth because fallacy is of equal merit. Huh? So, historically, we say it for the record, the downside of this civilization came about when action was legally defined as symbolic speech, therefore without restraints, responsibility, or answerability.